What changed for me is that I started to not believe that my self-worth was tied up into a student's performance.
That's today's guest, conductor and educator Cynthia Johnston Turner, inviting us to get real about tying our identity to our ensembles. Welcome to Music Ed Insights. I'm leadership trainer and former band director Alan Fire, here with composer and co-college music education program head Steve Shamley.
Each episode, Alan and I talk with national thought leaders in music education with practical insights for K-12 music educators.
Steve, tell us about our guest.
Cynthia Johnston Turner is an active conductor, speaker, and clinician globally. She was appointed Dean of the Faculty of Music at Wilfrid Laurier University in 2021, and previously she served as Director of Bands at the University of Georgia, where she oversaw the entire UGA band program. She was recently appointed Artistic Director and Conductor of the Wellington Wind Symphony and Festival Winds at Summer Music Society. Find Cynthia's full bio, show notes, and resources at musicedinsights.com. Alan, what's a takeaway you had from this episode?
As a guy who wants to see classroom culture be student-centered without lowering standards, I loved the way she addresses some of the toxicity of the old school without throwing it all away. What about you, Steve?
Well, no surprise. I love how she reminded us that everyone can improvise. It's not just for jazz band, and she had some great ideas for how to implement it.
And if you didn't edit it out, this is our second episode with an explicit rating.
Oh, I most definitely did not edit it out.
Okay, well, that's fine. This was recorded live at the Iowa Bandmasters Association conference in May of 2026. And it's a raw conversation, but it's a gripping one. She'll get open about losing students who didn't feel safe. She's got some great stuff on setting healthy boundaries. This is worth it. Insiders get ad-free episodes. You can learn more about that at our website. But for now, let's get to Cynthia Johnston Turner.
Cynthia Johnston Turner, welcome to the program.
Wow, the applause button. Thank you. That's awesome. Great to be here. Honored to be here.
Well, I was talking to some conference attendees about your session yesterday, which was very popular, and I know many of them are here today for a follow-up. I wonder if we could do a quick recap, and if you could start off by letting us know what you think we are getting wrong these days when it comes to engaging the 21st century learner.
Oh my gosh. Could you start with an easy question? Like my favorite restaurant?
That's not how...
Wow.
That's
oh
a great idea. You know what, Alan? I think later we should ask her about her favorite restaurant.
That's a great idea.
We'll definitely do that. Can we ask her about a favorite book she's read?
We might do that as well.
All right. Again, thank you, and I'm honored to be here, and great to see so many of you in the room. Yesterday I did a session on rehearsals and rehearsal techniques, the basics, and then moving beyond the basics to engage a different kind of learner. We talked about, in many ways, that the students that we interact with today have the same characteristics and the same kind of band kids. Wow, they're having a good time in that other room. We'll try to up the party volume in here. They're engaged, they're keen, they're smart, they have good work ethic, et cetera, et cetera. All the stereotypes we have about band kids, large ensemble kids. But in many ways, they're different. Their brains are different. Our brains are different. Because of this device, I'm holding up an iPhone. We're pretty attached to these things, and our students are fairly attached to them as well, and they have a whole other persona, possibly more than one persona, virtually. And what does that mean for us as educators? What does that mean for us as band conductors and educators in general, in higher ed, middle school, high school, kindergarten, et cetera? And so we talked a little bit about technology. Very, very, very briefly, I talked about the fact that I was a Google Glass explorer. Now, many of you do not know what Google Glass is. Do you know, Alan?
Wasn't it the virtual glasses where you could poke the button and you
right
get
on
information about what you're looking at?
Yes, in many ways, lots of privacy issues, but essentially you're wearing your phone on your face. And it was a failure in the sense that nobody in this room and nobody in general is wearing Google Glass, except for some EMT workers, because they can get vitals very quickly. So that's cool. But we did a whole bunch of experiments with that when I was at Cornell. We embedded a metronome. We did all sorts of things, and I went to some sessions with Google, and they talked about. And I did this in my session yesterday, where if you imagine a 19th century person being kind of scooped up and plopped down in today Times Square, everything about what they were seeing and hearing and feeling and looking at would be completely mind-blowing. The cars, the noise, the lights, the fashion, the amount of people, etc. Until you put that same person in a classroom. And it pretty much would be the same. And I just found that absolute, like, I was both blown away by that information and also a little bit depressed. And I started thinking about, well, okay, what if you took a guy, because it would be a guy, from the Sousa band, pick up a trombone player in the Sousa band and put him in my rehearsal room? Would everything about it be mind-blowingly strange? No. He would wonder, what's with all the percussion behind him, and what's she doing on the podium? But otherwise, he would know how to behave, where to sit, what to do, etc. And that was, one of many pedagogical crises I've had in my career. I started to think differently about what we could be doing that's more evolved, more engaging. Because I think a lot of us think that just because somebody's sitting in our ensemble and doing something, they're fully engaged. And I'm not quite so sure that's true.
Can you give an example of something that you maybe as a teacher were doing in the year 2005 that seemed to be working fine, that you would no longer try, or that you see some colleagues doing and you're thinking, nope, that doesn't work anymore?
I think just about, I'll say this, I don't remember 2005. Jeez. I'm not Will Arnett, Smart List, where he's just like got those dates. I don't have that kind of memory. I do know that when I started teaching, I didn't teach like I was taught to teach. I taught like I was taught. And my band director was fierce and mean and good. We had a great band, but you did not play a wrong note in that room, or else you were berated and shamed. It was a small band program for obvious reasons, but we were really, really good, and those were my people. And I felt connected to those people. He later became my stepfather, which is a really long, really long story. Probably should be in therapy on that, but he was really an excellent musician who did not know how to connect with kids. He was all about the product. And he wanted to have the best band in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada. And we did. We had the best band in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada. Who cares, right? And I taught like that for at least the first 5 years. I was all about the product. I was practice. If kids played wrong notes and rhythms in the second rehearsal, I freaked out on them. Until I started losing really good musicians in the program. And one brave boy one day came up to me when he didn't show up for a concert. He just didn't show. And the next day I was at him, and he said, I just don't feel safe in your ensemble. I'm not having a good time. Wow. So that was the first pedagogical crisis many, many years ago. Way before 2005, thank you very much. And so I changed. I became much more inclusive. I know that's a word we're throwing around, but I ended up with, and I think I spoke about this yesterday, in a school of approximately 1,100 kids. I had 375 in the program, and I thought that was really good. And later pedagogical crises, where were the other 700? I think Susan said the other day, Susan Smith, they all have music on their phone. Everybody loves music. Why aren't they in our program? So I can't remember a specific in 2005. Steve, thanks a lot. But I do remember that I was not very good early on.
Let's talk about how you evolved in that sense? Because I think your story is probably a pretty common one, that we have students who were excellent high school band musicians or choir or orchestra musicians, and so they naturally pursue music or music education in college, and they're surrounded by people who are great musicians, and then they get out into the real world and they have students who maybe aren't, and they run into these exact same frustrations that you did. Then they want their group to sound good and they want it to be a reflection of them, and you have decided, okay, I need to make it more welcoming. I need to make it more inclusive. And I think one of the first things people might say is, okay, so did you start being okay with wrong notes? Did the band start sounding bad? And you were like, well, I guess I got to be nice, so therefore I'm going to sacrifice what it sounds like. How did you go through that transition?
I think I'm still going through that transition. What changed for me is that I started to not believe that my self-worth was tied up into a student's performance. Yeah. Well, there's an applause meter.
Yeah, let the record show.
And that's really hard, especially for young teachers. That's really difficult because there's so much pressure to be good. And if your band's not good, then you are somehow less of a musician or person or human or whatever. And it's just not true. To all the young teachers in the room and who are listening, that's not true. And one of the things that I found when I was starting to teach is that when the basketball team had a bad year, it was a growing year. It was a young year. But when the band didn't sound well, it reflected on me. And I'm not sure that that was my colleagues or myself doing that. I think it was probably a little bit of both. But I think as soon as you remove your sense of self-worth tied up to your young person's, your students' behavior and their performance, things get better. You just automatically become more compassionate and empathetic. And no, you're not okay. You're not okay with wrong notes, of course not. But you still have high standards. You still have boundaries, very important. But how you get there is different. It's more compassionate. It's more patient. Is more forgiving.
So for the people in the audience who were nodding vigorously when you said, I am not going to have my self-worth tied up in what my group sounds like, that's one of those things I sort of would put in the category of, hey, everybody listen and tune up, that like if that worked, everyone's band would be in tune. So, and it doesn't. So I kind of feel same thing. Hey, just don't let your self-worth be tied up in what your group sounds like. And after one of the performances last night, I was walking down the stairs with one of my student teachers or former student teachers, and he's still, he's in his 40s now, and he's still like, so how did you do that? Did you find other ways to define your self-worth? Did you do some self-talk when you went into work in the morning? How do you do that besides just simply saying, it's not your self-worth that is determined by what your group sounds like?
Well, as I said, I think I'm still working on it. I think it's partly musician training. The way we are, there's so many great things about being a musician, of course. You just need to be a great human. There's so many things tied up. Listen to, what's the guy from the UK? He just did a commencement speech. He gets the whole audience singing. Ken Robbins? No, that's Jacob Collier, yeah. Or Collier if he was in France. But he just did a great talk on how being a musician and being a human are very much tied together. Like being a good musician means you need to be a good human and vice versa. Really cool. But that was squirrel. As I said, I think I'm still working on it. I think one of the strategies that continues to work for me is engaging the musicians. I now do a very fine community band, and engaging those semi-professional musicians more in the process, not being so much the expert all the time. We are trained, I want to speak about music training. It is largely a one-on-one teacher-master situation. That's complicated for us in many ways. We are taught that perfection is attainable, and therefore we seek it out all the time. Perfection is not attainable. I'm here to tell you. But this is something that we are taught, and it's drilled into us in music school and also when we're in teacher training. And so that does a number, at least it did a number on me, on my psyche. Not to mention that, my music teacher stepfather, that whole weird thing when I was a kid.
You're coming back for another episode on that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that's a whole other set of questions.
I already made a note.
Yeah, can't wait for that one.
So I think that we have to let some of that go. Here's another word that's overused these days, trauma. But in some, I think some of it is traumatic, how we go through music schools to become the best musician that we can be. And so letting some of that go and understanding that the majority of the students in our ensembles will not go to music school. Some of them will, and we will approach them differently perhaps. But most of them we just want them to be consumers of music. And we want them to continue to love music and love making music together and enjoy the experience and know that they're cared for and communicated with and understood and part of the process. So that was what the clinic was about yesterday, is here are some rehearsal techniques, community building. How do you build community? What does that even mean? Is there an underbelly of community, which I'm starting to research now? Like as soon as you build a community, people are excluded. So what does that mean? Yeah. So I just started to really delve into those things personally. Like doing my own work on myself and continue to do that, but also who are these youngsters in front of me and caring about that a little bit more.
We've got a couple questions piling up from the audience. Thanks a lot for submitting those. Numbers up there. Somebody from E563 area code asks, getting back to that classroom, getting back to kind of that old school, we want to make sure that we are, we're updating and we're not using that old school approach. How can you adjust your approach to your ensembles if you feed into a program that has more of that old school approach? What do you do when you're sending students into that? Do you have to prepare them for that to a certain extent, or do you shield them from that totally? Can you? I'm elaborating a little bit. Give you a stall a little bit for you to.
No,
I think that's a tough question.
So this is like I'm a middle school teacher and the high school.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, that's a very tough situation. I think that I maybe want to clarify that some of the traditional ways that band have been taught are still good, right? I mean, there's still a lot of really wonderful things that work and work well and they're not necessarily bad for students. It's just the sort of always top-down expert. I think I said yesterday, you're on a box with a stick telling them what to do, when to do, and how to do it. And then at the same time, the music advocacy folks are saying music's different. In fact, music can be much worse than what's happening in the science and math classrooms because they've gone to flipping the classroom. What does that mean for us? What does flipping the classroom mean in a band rehearsal? They do homework in the classroom, and it's very I think problematic and challenging to say that what music does in the rehearsal is different or more evolved when it's always traditional. So the clarifying point: tradition isn't bad. Tradition can be very, very good, and the way that we have taught band for decades and centuries is there's a lot of amazing things that I still do. If you are adopting more of a collegial, that's a wrong word because you should have boundaries, but it's more inclusive, more engaging, more asking questions, more providing opportunities for creativity, improvisation, opening up the classroom to different genres of music. By the way, I think the future of music is genreless. But you're also feeding into a high school situation that is, more top down, et cetera. Conversations with that high school teacher, if possible, I think might be helpful, but also prepping the student for that, or just remembering why they love music. And, frankly, it might not work out. It depends on what's happening in that high school, because I repeat, a lot of traditional teaching isn't bad, as long as it's not harmful or boring.
There is an affirmation of that. We also got this from Patrick from Central Iowa. This comes from an old man band director. Could a case be made for the comfort of our rehearsals being old school and low tech? Could there be students who find safety in the routine of our time-tested approaches? And I feel like you've touched on that.
Right on.
Here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There is nothing more exciting to me than a well-thought-out lecture. Right? I mean, lectures have taken a bad rap in the last few years, because who wants to be talked at? Me. I want to be talked at
if it's good.
If it's good. Yeah. If I'm going to learn something. If it's well crafted. If it's beautifully thought out and it's a piece of art. Bring it on. So, I don't think that you have to. Can I say throw out the baby with the bathwater? Is that? Can I say that?
That one you can. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. There's so many things. She's like, oh, God, edit that out. But you know what I mean?
I was promised yesterday that you might drop an F-bomb or two. And then we only, today, in 4 or 5 years, we only have one episode with an explicit rating. So you could perhaps...
you could join the club with Bob Washut at that point.
Okay, be careful now that you've given me that permission. Yeah, but I think Susan said the other day, it was Susan Smith, I came in the last minute, it doesn't have to be either or. We can do both and we have to figure out what works. And what works for you might be very different than what works for me, or what works for you, or what works for the listener. It's part of being authentic, right? I mean, we talked about that also yesterday. Who are you? Like, you have to do that work. And a lot of the sort of practical techniques that I gave, like try this, don't try this, don't try this all at once. Try this and see what works for you. If it doesn't work for you, forget it, right? If it doesn't work for your kids, forget it. And so I think you have to figure out who you are as a person, and that's who you are as an educator. And therefore, I think all of our classrooms will be different. Because if you want to try something that's exactly what I've tried, hopefully it works, but you would do it in a way that would be you.
Speaking about being you, there was something in one of your previous answers. It went by really fast, but it just popped out at me. You talked about being accessible, and I don't remember your exact words, but then you used the word boundaries. You said, well, you have to have boundaries. And then you kept going on. I think a lot of young teachers here get really close to your students and build relationships with them, which I certainly believe. And that you hear other people who say, don't smile until Christmas. And neither one of those is probably a great idea. Right. What have you learned about appropriate boundaries and appropriate bonding and relationships with your students?
Okay, well, there's I could talk for long. I'll try not to drop the F-bomb. I just want to get back to that, the question that on the phone about safety and routine. Okay. And I absolutely agree. They're just like we are all different in this room, and all of the listeners are different, have different childhoods. I know your mothers both love you, and that's great. It's the first thing I learned about both of you.
Yeah, earlier you said no one is perfect. I was like, Mary Beth Shanley might disagree with you on that one.
Just like we're all unique, so our students are all unique, and we all learn differently, and they all learn differently. So yes, to the question, I think that there are many students in our band rooms who respond very well to routine, and all of our students respond very well to structure. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying it's the 21st century. By the way, we have to stop saying that. We're 2026.
Yes, we're a quarter century.
We are more than a generation in. Yeah. So, I don't want to give the impression that we need to throw out everything and just do these new things. On the contrary, so I'm agreeing with the listener or the person who sent that in.
Patrick from Central Iowa.
Patrick from Central Iowa.
And I think back to there was a question earlier from a middle school teacher who was basically saying I'm sending students into a different environment in the high school. And you said something that also went by quickly that I think is very important. And it was something to the effect of, as long as it's a safe environment, and I have come around to this a lot, especially in the last 15 or 20 years, there's a chance that some of those students that you are sending into that high school program, it's different than what you're doing, and they might like it a lot better. Mm-hmm. Yeah. As long as you, like you said, provided it's still safe. It just might look a little bit different, and it's not how you would do it, but there might be some students who think that's exactly what I want. And I think that's the beauty of larger programs or larger districts where there are many teachers, and a student can usually find someone that they can connect with. And I think that is one of the unspoken challenges in those smaller districts, smaller towns, where there might be one music teacher or one band teacher for everybody, that's the personality, and we can't be everything for everyone. So, and I don't think we talk about instrumentation and all of the other challenges of being in a small program, but I think that's one that doesn't get talked about very much.
Here, I didn't address the boundaries question. I am in the 5th year and possibly the last 28 days, not that I'm counting, of being a dean, which was incredible learning experience. Very, very proud of what's happened in the last 5 years. Very happy for it to be over. Leadership is difficult, and being a band director is leadership. But we struggle with boundaries in higher ed music. Mm-hmm. And it's partly because something I touched on, this one-on-one relationship that happens usually behind closed doors, and you've chosen your music school because of that teacher. Holy smokes. That's a lot. That's a lot of pressure on that teacher, and it's a lot of pressure on that relationship. I could talk a lot about how some schools are moving away from one-on-one lessons for safety reasons, safety of the instructor, safety of the student, etc. We've got windows on all the doors now at Laurier. There are boundary problems inherent in music schools, partly because of that relationship, partly because folks want to be liked, right? We all want to be liked. That's problematic as well. You don't have to like me, right, all the time. We can disagree on things. But if I want to be liked all the time, then I will have boundary issues with my students. So I hear that. I hear you when with young teachers, have relationship with your students. Be careful. Yeah, they want to know that you care about them. They want to know that you care about their opinions, and that you are communicating and listening. But you are not texting at midnight. There's a big difference. And I think as somebody from Central Iowa, I forget his name. Patrick from Central Iowa, you're awesome, is talking about old school and safety. I think boundaries are part of that routine and safety as well. Our boundaries, students' boundaries, etc. Very, very important. Very, very important.
Earlier, you mentioned improvisation. And I'm curious if you have any suggestions or thoughts about how we could integrate that into something that, for example, the Sousa Band most likely was not doing a whole lot of in a concert band setting.
Yeah. First of all, I was terrible at it. I was a terrible improviser, and so I didn't want to teach it because I didn't feel I knew what I was doing. If you're a jazz educator, this is your life. You know how to do it. And so because I wasn't very good at it, because I feared it, I didn't know how to teach it. I didn't want to teach it. I was very disparaging of students who learned by rote. I was very disparaging of that kind of teaching. Now I'm like, let's start with that, right? Let's. And I learned about that actually when I did the hip hop project. this was a team effort. When I was at Georgia, we had the School of Music at Georgia, fantastic. The alt music scene in Athens, Georgia, off the charts. Any relationship there, do you think? Zero. Let's see what we can do there. And so we started this hip hop project. What would happen if you put a hip hop artist and a classically trained composer in the same room to write for band? What would happen? Well, at that very first meeting, a lot of alcohol was consumed. But we also came.
I didn't want to say that's probably why you don't remember 2005.
That's completely gone. Completely gone. We are paper trained, and the hip hop artists are beat trained, and many of them don't know how to read music. Wow, what do you do with that? And some of those processes and products off the charts, and it was largely improvisation. I mean, one idea for improvisation I talked about yesterday. So. Let's say you're near the concert and you've got a piece that's fairly easy to put together, and the students are sounding really, they're really good on it. And you say to the group, all right, anybody that feels comfortable, turn your stands around and we're going to run it. Or if it's a longer piece, anybody that feels comfortable, turn your stands around. We're going to take a look at rehearsal A. Everybody looks at rehearsal A. Put your finger on rehearsal A. Okay. We're going to go from rehearsal A to rehearsal B. See it? Right. Okay. Anybody that's comfortable, turn your stands around. And we're going to do that. We're going to run it. We're going to run A to B, or we're going to run the piece, depending on size. And then you do the same thing, right? You put the score away, you move the stand. And that alone is a really freeing, interesting, scary, wonderful thing. Right, when you move the stand away. And then you do it. And that you give them boundaries, you give them structure, you give them rules, because a lot of people think that improv is just like, whatever, do it. No. Improv has a lot of rules and a lot of structure and a lot of listening, right? Like improv in a comedy show. They're just there. You can't improv by yourself, right? You're responding to what's happening with the person on the stage. Well, one of the boundaries or the rules are you can't stop. We're going to go from A to B and we're not going to stop. And you're not going to stop. So if you don't remember, it's okay. Make something up. That alone, that's improv, right? But they're improvising when you give them the rules. You need to make something up that's in the same key. Oh, now we're going to teach you. Make sure you've taught them the key. Right? You might not exactly have the rhythm and the articulation, but go for something that's similar, and that's just a way to start introducing improvisation. And a few times when I've done this, what people have come up with is like a little bit better, really interesting. We kept it.
You said you weren't a jazz musician, or that jazz musicians, they're the ones who are trained to teach improvisation.
I was a jazz musician. I just wasn't very good at it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that clarification, because I'd like to think everybody is a jazz musician as well. So that's awesome. I think the people who were trained to improvise in a jazz setting are actually the worst at trying to teach this in a concert band setting, because they know, well, I need to use the super hypo-mixo cool scale over this, and we're going to arpeggiate over this, and we're going, and what you said, like, you know what, just turn it around and try it from memory. A jazz musician would not consider that improvising. They're like, we need chord changes, and we need to play guide tones, and we have patterns that we have to memorize, and we need to do all of this. So I would encourage listeners and audience members, like, the fact that you maybe don't have that knowledge is going to make you way better equipped to teach true creativity and improvisation, and not just, all right, we're going to learn a whole bunch of music theory that hopefully you can regurgitate in a way that sounds somewhat convincing. Do you have any other gems like the one you just shared? Because that's great. I've been asking people for 4 years, how do we get more improvisation in the large group setting? No one's given me that idea yet. Do you have another one?
Well, then my work is done. Mic drop.
It is.
Unless you got more. Unless you get some more of that.
Well, more and more composers are writing music that builds that in, right? Michael Colgrass has a little bit of he started to do that. I can't think of the composer right now. She's Canadian that she's starting to write that in. In fact, she's written a piece. What's her name? No, but Kate's in my band. Yeah. She is so cool. She's a birder. I don't know if there are any birders in there. Yeah. Anyway, wow, was that was
Squirrel.
First of all, I hear you say as a jazz musician that jazz musicians wouldn't necessarily be good at teaching improv in the concert band setting. That's kind of mind-blowing for me, and thank you for saying that.
They know too much for their own good.
Yeah, sometimes more information is not necessary or not helpful. I think, more and more composers, and if we have any composers in the room or any listeners, like, start building it into concert band pieces. Make it easier for us to help our students do it, right? I think so. That's another idea. I think one of when I was teaching high school, we had an improv ensemble that met after school, and more, and it was just come one, come all. And we had the rules on I did some research on how to teach improv, and we had some rules that were constantly there. And man, that was my favorite part of the day. For me, I was part of that ensemble. It's so fun and so freeing. And it was, when I was actually teaching it, I felt better about my improvisation skills because I wasn't doing jazz. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Ugh.
I feel like I love jazz. It's beautiful. It's a great American invention, but it has done a lot of harm in terms of how musicians conceive of improvisation. They don't understand that it can look so many different ways. And unfortunately, because of how jazz has been taught in the last 30 years especially, it's basically music theory. And if your brain doesn't really like music theory, then people tell me, yes, I'm not really much of an improviser, and that breaks my heart.
Do you feel? Oh, I'm going to say something controversial. Sorry.
Do it.
Excellent.
I mean,
F-bomb optional.
I effing hate. No, just kidding. Edit. There, I gave you time. I don't necessarily want to go to an improvisation concert. Ugh. Do you know what I mean? I mean, when I started at Laurier, and partly because of COVID, they had this improv ensemble, and I was saying, this is awesome, a whole ensemble that just does improv, and oh my God, brutal. Like, partly because there wasn't a lot of structure. It was COVID. We were just trying to make people happy, and it was just like, God, I just don't want to listen to this. On the other hand, I think over the course of 5 years, and I had nothing to do with this other than maybe hiring a different instructor, the ICE, it was the Improvisation Creative Ensemble, ICE Ensemble was some of my favorite concerts to go to because of the structure, and they brought the audience into the conversation and to how the students were learning this particular improvisational device. And I went to the dress rehearsal and the concert, and they were slightly different, but not that much different, right? One might expect at an improv that the dress rehearsal would be very different because it's improvisation than the concert, but actually not so. So I think that, I mean, we've already touched on this, that structure and rules and all of that sort of stuff are very important for improvisation to be fun, but also something that the listener can enjoy as well. I mean, there's an old analogy that if you had a piece of wire just sitting by itself on the desk, it doesn't make music. But as soon as you put two pieces of wood pegs, and you tighten and tighten and tighten and tighten, and then you pluck that string, wow, you've got music. And so that's a really interesting analogy for me about discipline and structure. And you can't just willy-nilly have a piece of string and expect to make music. You've got to have that structure and those rules.
Any more questions over there, Alan?
No more questions from the audience. Anybody want to just holler out a question?
Oh, they're having so much fun.
They're having a lot of fun. Yeah,
They're having more fun than we are.
That's okay.
I'm having FOMO. No, I agree with your dislike for attending a totally free improv performance. For me, I liken that to watching someone hit a tennis ball against the garage door. Like, that's a great thing for them to be doing. They're probably developing their skills, but like that's not something that's super enjoyable to watch, and I don't feel a part of it as an audience member, partially because there just is no structure or predictability or involvement in that sense. But it doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing to be doing. It just maybe isn't a great thing to watch or listen as well. Yes, Maddie.
Do you have any favorite composers that you feel like people aren't listening to yet, that you want their music to get out there and you're doing really cool stuff?
Well, what an interesting question. I believe that's part of the lightning round.
Good memory, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's repeat the question. Yeah, any composers, pieces of music that we should be knowing about? Sometimes that gets answered in the lightning round, but right now we're doing it right now.
Michael Berry. Michael Berry is a Hollywood guy. He is the orchestrator for somebody named John Williams and Alan Menken. He's written a lot of band pieces. I recorded an album. This is a funny story. Boomba is a piece by Michael Berry. Check it out. I did it when I was at UGA. He found it on YouTube. And long story short, he said, hey, I've got an album of my band music. I'd like you to conduct it. Do you want to go to Abbey Road, LA, or Budapest? And I went, well, let me think about that for a nanosecond. I don't care, but yes. All right. And by the way, that concert, if you look for it on YouTube, of Boomba, the reason I think he liked that performance so much is that, and we talked a little bit about the audience. We did a thing, and I still do it, where I'm interested in evolving the concert experience so that we're not so ritually compliant. Like, don't clap here and, all of that stuff. And we did a thing at Georgia, and I still do it, where for one number, I invite anybody in the audience to come and sit with us on the stage. So we did Boomba during JanFest, which was this massive band festival that happened at Georgia. 1,100 high school kids in the audience with their band directors. And we did Boomba at the end, and we'd been doing this for a few years, so they knew it was coming. Any students that would like to join us on, and I didn't even get the sentence out, and like 100 kids rushed the stage. And at one point, I was like, oh, fire hazard, oh my God. And another part of me was like, this is fucking awesome. Like, it was so great.
Verbo is going to pull their advertising with us after that, but it's totally worth it.
And so there's all of these high school kids who have been mentored by the University of Georgia students, right, who are just like band geeks beyond belief and wonderful kids who are on the stage while we're doing Boomba, and the energy is palpable. It was unbelievable. So Mike Berry. Kate Nishimura, we've already mentioned. Shad, he's a rapper in Canada. My first or second year, I guess my second year as dean, we have an artist in residence series, and I brought in a hip hop artist, and his name's Shadrach Kabango. And he's kind of your dad's rap, but he's just dropped a new album, and it's unbelievable. He taught us so much about rhyme and lyric and music and lyric that I became a hip hop. Well, I was already into hip hop a little bit, but yeah, he's unbelievable. And Missy Mazzulli, I think, is one of our living legends.
Well, can we continue with our lightning round questions? We've got 4 more for you. Yes, okay. Where is your current hometown? Where do you reside now?
We just moved permanently to Meaford, Ontario.
Okay.
Meaford, Ontario. This is a cottage that my husband and I bought in 2019. Think of the timing. It was literally, when you looked at it from the water, it's right on Georgian Bay, which is the big bay off of the Great Lake Huron. It was on stilts and just leaning to the left a little bit. And long story short, we couldn't renovate it because of code, et cetera, et cetera. I got the job as dean, and we built a small home right on the water, and that is my happy place, Meaford, Ontario.
And is there a restaurant nearby that is one of your favorites?
Okay, I've thought about this question, and I am very grumpy about restaurants. I don't know about y'all, but I have found it's either me aging or restaurants have gotten much louder. and I just can't stand it. So to me, it's about the atmosphere. Also, and this is, oh God, do I share this? If I can make it, I don't want to spend that kind of money on it. So I'm very interested in restaurants that are creative, that are doing new things, or things like, I have no idea how to make this. It's delicious. So there's one called Bruce that we just went to for my husband's birthday, and it's in Thornbury, which is just south of Meaford, and it was phenomenal. Sat at the bar, had my first cocktail in years, which I can't even describe. It was so delicious and dangerous. And then the food was incredible. And we went at 5:30, and so there weren't very many people there. And it wasn't very loud. And of course, over the course of dinner, it's like, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite TV series or movie you've enjoyed
Pit,
recently?
The Pit. Yeah. It's a hard watch. But boy, the acting is off the charts, and the format is, for those of you that haven't seen it, the format is unique and brave. And I'm just sucked into these characters, but also it's exposed one of the many issues with healthcare in not just the United States, but also in Canada. People think that Canada has brilliant healthcare, and compared to the United States, I'm a dual citizen, so I can say this. It is better for all people, but it's not perfect. Anyway, I think The Pit is incredible. Rewatching The Crown. And West Wing, of course, the best ever. You mentioned Alan Sorkin.
Aaron Sorkin, yeah.
And we just watched Remarkably Bright Creatures. Highly recommend the book as well. Shelby Van Pelt, I think. And sometimes when you read a book and then you see the movie, it's like, a shadow of the book. Oh, they did a great job. And so I'm a Sally Field nut, so it was great.
How about the most memorable live music performance you've attended? So,
just a few days ago, I went to a concert and it was an in memoriam concert. One of our community members in Waterloo, Ontario, where Laurier is and donors died, and his widow, instead of having a funeral, etc., although that happened privately, we organized a concert. And our very own Penderecki String Quartet played, our very own Anya Alexiev, who's going to solo with Wellington Wind Symphonies on a Michael Berry piece, Paganini Fantasy. She played, and I think it was so memorable because these were our faculty members, and they just blew me away. And also, I mentioned César Franck. At the clinic, they did a piece by César Franck. I can't remember the name of it, but I am going to check out more music by César Franck because it was just unbelievable. And I think I know about César Franck. I mean, we studied him in school, but he kind of didn't write any band music, so I'm not listening to him anymore, which is ridiculous. So that was very memorable because I heard a piece where I went, I need to listen to more of that music. I feel very sad by the fact that there's so much great music out there that I will never hear. You know, there's just...
Yeah. Sometimes we feel that way about TV shows. There's so many great TV shows. Cynthia Johnston Turner, it's been a great time having you here. Thank you. I went for a walk this morning with somebody who said, wait until you feel her energy. And we feel some energy in this room or what? And thank you for being our second explicit rated episode. Thanks for listening to Music Ed Insights.
We're supported by Group Dynamic, a leading provider of youth leadership workshops. Alan works with dozens of schools each year to help develop their leaders. Learn more at groupdynamicyouth.com.
Or you could email me at alan@groupdynamic.net. You could also learn about Steve's arrangements, compositions, and program consulting at steveshanley.com.
Or email me, steve.shanley@gmail.com.
Our Facebook page is Music Ed Insights.
Our website has program notes, links, and information about our Insider program. That's musicedinsights.com.
Insiders get ad-free episodes and a one-page download of this episode's key takeaways.
Expect episodes most Mondays during the school year.
Get current.
Stay relevant.
Music Ed Insights.